Learning today is sponsored especially for our special pre-Purim Yom Iyun by Batsheva Cantor in memory of Dr. Reuven Cantor. Cantor Ben Beryl Ben Leif Halevi, who passed away on February the 5th. And the learning is also sponsored by Michael and Shara Königsberg. And they put a little message here. Ratzon she'Kodesh Baruch Hu yivarech et amo Yisrael b'shalom yishlach yeshuos refuos nechamos lachol hanetzurim b'tzara b'shivya l'chayaleinu v'toshvei artzeinu hakadosha. And we can absolutely say amen to that. And my shir today specifically is sponsored for the 2025 academic year. Le'ilu nishmois Brana Bas Brandit and Zelig Ben Kalman Aleihim Hashalom. Thank you very much for that sponsorship. Wonderful to see you all today. We have a slightly shorter shir today. We are going till, I think, 10:35 or 10:40. And we are talking about Purim Meshulash. This is the year that all the rabbis like to dust off their shirim for Purim Meshulash and Erev Pesach Shechal Yos B'Shabbos. And we all get very excited about that. The truth is, this is our last Purim Meshulash till 2045. So let's make the most of it. Because hopefully we will all reconvene 20 years from now. But I won't have a problem because no one's going to remember my shir 20 years, so I'll just give the same one again. Okay, let's do this quickly. This is a fairly complicated topic at times, and my brain is still in the Mid-Atlantic. I got back yesterday morning from a 2.5-week trip to America, England and America. But we should try and keep some clarity. If I could ask you to turn off your phones, please. Turn them onto silent or turn them off, that would be great. Okay, let's start with some familiar territory. We have an obligation in the Tanakh itself to read the Megillah. The question is, where does it say that and where does it list the mitzvah? Number one, let's do this really quickly, get us in the Purim mood. The Jews of the unwalled cities are Yoshev Area Prazot Osim et Yom Arba Asa LaChodesh Adar. They keep the 14th of Adar, Simcha u'Mishta v'Yomtev u'Mishloach Manas Ishlerehu. Lists all the different mitzvahs there. There's one missing, we'll see in a minute, that comes later, of Simcha, of a feasting, drinking, Yomtev, celebrating, giving gifts to other people. V'Yichtav Mordechai, it's at Dvarim Ha'ele, Mordechai writes it all down. Vayishlach Svarim El Kol HaYudim, Asher Kol B'Dinas HaMelech HaChashverosh HaKaroivim HaRechoikim, sends it out wide and far. L'Kayim Alein Liyos Osim is Yom Arba Asa L'Chodesh Adar, 14th of Adar. Ve'et Yom Chamisha Asa B'Chol Shana V'Shana, every year it's the 14th and the 15th. Ki Yomim Asher Nachu B'Hem HaYudim Me'oiveihem, like the days we rested, the Jews rested from their enemies. V'HaChodesh, and the entire month. There's a month. That's why we have a concept of Mishenichnas Adar, because it says not just those dates, but HaChodesh, the entire month. Asher nefach lahem miyagon lesimcha me'eva liyomtev la'asois oisam yimei mishta v'simcha u'mishloach manos ishlerehu matanas le'evyonim. We add in there matanas le'evyonim to get the full range of mitzvahs. Kimu v'kiblu haYehudim aleihem. The Jews accepted on themselves va'al zara v'akol hanilvim aleihem. Lo ya'avor, v'lo ya'avor, and they will not let it pass. We'll see what that means in a minute. Liyos oisem shnei hayimim ha'ele, and it again reiterates of the whole month there are two special days. Kichsavam u'kizmanam, just like Mordechai wrote them all down and at the right times. B'chol shana v'shana v'hayamim ha'ele nizkarim v'nasim. These days there will be a zikaron, there will be a remembrance, and na'asim, there will be a performance of mitzvahs. B'chol dor v'dor, mishpacha, mishpacha, medina, medina, ve'ir. Families should get together, cities should have celebrations, and there should be a communal event. So we have the many mitzvahs of Purim. Of course, it doesn't explicitly say read the Megillah. It doesn't explicitly say. It talks about Simcha and Yontef and feasting, etc. So the Gemara asks this in number 3. I see all of the mitzvahs of performance here. Zechira minalam, but how do I know that there's a mitzvah of reading specifically? Amakra, because the pasuk says Hayamim ha'ele nizkarim v'na'asim. There will be a zechira and there will be an asiyah. Itkesh Zechira La'asiyah. And we'll see this Hekesh, this connection of Zechira, of mentioning, of remembering them, to doing them. This is going to be very important to work out our timing on Purim Meshulash. The concepts of Zachor in Halacha, when it talks about Zachor, is almost always an active recitation, not just a passive remembrance. Remember, Zachor is Yom HaShabbos L'Kadsho. It's not like I have to think in my mind, oh, it's Shabbos today. I have to say Kiddush specifically to mention that it's Shabbos. Zachor es asher alecha Amalek. Remember what Amalek did. That's not just remember, that's recited. Similarly, with Pesach Seder, the idea of Zachor et Yom Hazeh asher yisatem miMitzrayim. Remember the day that you left Egypt is not just a remembrance, it's a recitation of the Haggadah. And therefore, here too, Zechira means not just to remember Purim, but to recite the Purim, the Megillah. And we find that apart from the mention in Tanakh, there is a later rabbinic mitzvah as well. And this becomes important. Number 3. Amar Rabbi Shua ben Levi, Chayiv Adam likros es Megillah b'layla u'lishnosa b'yom. We have a mitzvah, says Yeshua ben Levi. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi was living later. He's an Amorah. You have to read the Megillah twice, by night and then by day. And he gets a posuk in Tehillim, brings a posuk, Shneimar, Elohai ekra yomam v'lo ta'aneh. God, my God, I called you by day and you never answered. V'layla lo idumia li. And at nighttime I called and I was silenced. There was only silence. What does that mean? I called out by day and at nighttime. So most of the Meforshim understand that the main thrust of the pasuk is by day. That by day I cried out. Oh, and also at night. From which we'll see right now in Tosfos, the main reading of the Megillah is by day, and the nighttime is a subordinate reading. Have a look here in number 4. Chayiv Adam likros es Megillah b'layla shnosa b'yom. The Ri says, the Rabbi Yitzchak HaZaken, the Af agav the mavarech zman b'layla. Even though we say She'achiyanu at night when we read the Megillah, we have to say another She'achiyanu, which is the Ashkenazi minhag. The Ikar Prisume Nisa Have Bekriya Diyamah, because the main Megillah is Megillah by day. And that's also implied by the Pasuk Diksiv V'layla lo dum yeli. That there's and also added on the nighttime, and there was just silence. Kalaima af al gav shekore b'yom chayav likros b'layla. Even though you read by day, you also have to read by night. The ha'ika have b'yamama, but the main reading is by day. Kevin shehiskiru hakosov tchilis, since that's what's mentioned in the Pasuk in Tehillim first. V'gam ika hasuda b'yamama, so too the suda is by day. B'yamama hu keda'ama lekaman de'im achla b'layla lo yedei yatsa yedei chavasa. If you have your Purim meal at nighttime, you're not yotze with that. Hachinam amashme midichsev nizkarim v'nasem itkish chira l'siyah ma ika asiyah b'yamama, just like the main Megillah is a day. The main mitzvahs rather are by day. Okay, fine. In many ways, the real holiday is by day. The real reading is by day, and the nighttime reading is like a preparation. It's to get us in the mood. It's to remember it and to be ready for the daytime reading. There is even an opinion, by the way, that if you missed the nighttime reading for whatever reason, you should read it twice by day. Because the whole idea is that you have to have a practice run, and then the real thing. The nighttime is the practice one. Now, we don't paskin like that opinion. We say that even if you missed it by night, you only say it once by day. But the day, nevertheless, is the main one. And that may even be a higher level of obligation. Have a look on the top of page 2. Says the Rambam, Kriyat HaMegillah Bizmana, Mitzvat Aseh Midivrei Sofrim. There is a rabbinic mitzvah of Kriyat HaMegillah. V'hadvarim yuduim shehi takanas neviim. And it's not only midivrei sofrim, but takanas neviim. The Rambam is saying a very important thing here. There are 2 levels of obligation on Purim. There's the mitzvahs divrei sofrim, there's the rabbinic mitzvah, and there's the Tanakh mitzvah. It's mi takanas neviim, and many of the Meforshim understand that the nighttime is the rabbinic mitzvah of Megillah, but the daytime Megillah is a higher level. It's what's called midivrei Kabbalah, nothing to do with mysticism. Kabbalah, as in it comes from the Tanakh itself, and therefore the morning reading is a higher level of halachic obligation. There's an interesting question, which is what happens if a person can only hear one? they're in jail and somebody says to them, we're going to let you out and you can choose. You either do the nighttime or the daytime. Which do they do? Do they say, well, I'll wait till the daytime because that's the higher level? Or do they say, something, al-chaparine, I'll do it at nighttime because they might just change their mind? Bishva Babashad, exactly. And this is a very well-known debate. There are different opinions in either direction. If somebody, for example, is told at the beginning of Tishrei, the doctor tells them you can only fast once, not more than once. It's not healthy for you. Which fast do they fast? Do they say, okay, I'm going to eat on some Gedalia and save it for Yom Kippur? Or do they say, something, I'll fast while I can fast and don't worry about later? Or if someone says, we're going to let you out of jail to daven once in the whole year, which one should it be? So some of the Meforshim say, today, I'll daven mincha today, who knows? And some people say, no, you wait, Rosh Hashanah, I'll come out for Rosh Hashanah. So here too, that comes into the question as well. But what we do see here, and this is important for Purim Meshulash, is there can be a Kriyas HaMegillah, which is the real deal, the higher level, and then there can be a Kriyas HaMegillah, which is a kind of makeup or a practice run. So we're going to have to ask ourselves this year, when the Yerushalmim will be reading on Friday, which is the 14th, not the 15th, is that the real deal? Is that the real Purim? Is it this year for Yerushalayim, you have Purim on the 14th of Adar, on Friday? Or is that, just like we've seen, like the nighttime reading, it's a practice run. It's not the real deal. And we're going to see lots of implications to that question. So have a look now with me at the issue of reading on Shabbat. Let's have a look at number 6. So the first Mishnah in Megillah is quite well known. A lot of people start Megillah. They don't all get to the end, but they at least get to the beginning. So it says here, quite famously, Megillah Nikres Ba'achad Asar, the Megillah can in theory be read on the 11th of Adar, B'Shneim Asar on the 12th of Adar, B'Shlosh Asar, the 13th of Adar, B'Arba Asar, the 14th of Adar, B'Chamisha Adar Asar. And I'm not getting into all of the combinations and permutations. There were villages who didn't have a minyan, and on Mondays and Thursdays, when the people from the town came to sell produce, or when they went to the towns, they got their minyan, and therefore they had the Megillah reading on earlier days. Now, why do they need a minyan? You don't need a minyan to read the Megillah. Okay, so maybe they didn't need a minyan, but they needed an expert, someone who could read. They didn't know how to read. They got a special dispensation, because of course we saw it was the whole month. The Pasuk says the Chodesh. It's not just the 14th and 15th. Lo pachot v'lo yoter. So they can't do it any earlier, and they can't do it any later. Now, later would be the 16th. And this year, the Yerushalmim will be having Purim Suda on the 16th. How's that okay? It says lo yoter. You can't have it later. We'll see. Krachim hamukvim choma, walled cities. Miyamos Yeshua ben Nun, from the time of Yeshua ben Nun. Okay, for now that's Yerushalayim. I put in the footnote that there are a few other questionable cities. Yaffo is a question. Lod is a question. Akkad, Tzfat, Haifa, Beersheba, Hebron, Shechem. I'm not sure who's reading in Shechem this year. Azza, there may be soldiers in Azza who are reading. It's very interesting this year. So the question is, when did they read these wall cities? And the answer is, B'Chamishasa. They read on the 15th. Kfarim, Ve'yaros, Gedolos, and villages and cities which are not walled, Karim Ba'arbasa, they read on the 14th. But the small villages have the dispensation to go earlier, like we said. Now, Ketzah. And of course, it goes through all the combinations, which I'm not going to read them all now. But let's just do Shabbos. Chali Yos Yom Arbasa Erev Shabbos. If the 14th falls on a Friday. Now, given our fixed calendar, the 14th cannot fall on a Shabbos. But the 14th can fall on a Friday, like this year. So what does everybody do? Kfarim Magdinim Limaknisa. So the small villages bring it forward to Thursday. Now, we don't do this anymore for all sorts of reasons. So there is no earlier reading than the 14th. And the walled cities, who normally read on the 15th, they bring it forward to the 14th, and they read on the same day as everybody else. They read on Friday. And our question is, why? Why can't they read on Shabbos? What's wrong with them reading the Megillah on Shabbos? Let them read the Megillah on Shabbos. So the Gemara gives 2 reasons. Now, the carrying is one. We'll see that now, but the other reason is very important too. Number 7. Everybody says the Gemara here, everybody agrees that we can't read the Megillah on Shabbos. The question is, why? My timer. What could be the problem? Meaning, think about it. We read the Sefer Torah every Shabbos. We don't have a problem reading, meaning maybe someone will carry a Sefer Torah. We don't have a problem with that. We'll see. My timer, why would there be a problem with Megillah? I'm a rabbi, so Rabbi says, Hakol chayavim b'kriyas Megillah. Everybody has a personal obligation to read the Megillah, which, by the way, may immediately be a difference between Megillah and Sefer Torah on a regular Shabbos. You don't have a personal obligation to hear the laning on Shabbos. The community has an obligation to have laning in shul on Shabbos. But if you missed it, you missed it. It's not the end of the world. Megillah, you have to fulfill it. Everybody has that obligation, men and women. The ein hakol b'kiyim b'mikra Megillah, but not everybody knows how to read for themselves. So gezerah always means pure rabbinic law. It's a pure rabbinic law. Shema yitlena b'yadav v'yelech etzel baki lilmoid. Maybe you'll take it and run with it in the street. There won't be an eruv. You'll go and take it to an expert to teach you how to read. When you carry 4 amas, you'll be so samished, you'll be so bahul, you'll be going crazy, you're losing, the time is nearly over. You'll run outside and you'll forget that it's Shabbos and you'll carry in the street. Behind the time with the shofar, the same idea with shofar. Behind the time with the lulav, and the same idea with lulav. Not everybody knows how to blow the shofar. They'll run with the shofar, someone to blow for them. Not everybody knows how to shake the lulav, which is interesting because how complicated is it to shake the lulav? All you need to do is just pick it up and you did the mitzvah. There's lots of Torah on that. That's not for today. That's the first opinion. Rav Yosef Amar. Rav Yosef says, no, different opinion. Mipnei she'eineihem shel aniyim noisos b'mikra Megillah. Nesuos b'mikra Megillah. It's nothing to do with the Megillah. It's the money. Matanas le'evyonim, they always come when the Megillah is being read. And that taka they do. I mean, people take this really seriously. They come around for money. Everyone agrees that you can't have money on Shabbos because you might carry the money and the money's muksa, etc., etc. So since the evyonim need to come when the Megillah is being read and they can't do it on Shabbos, it's brought forward to Friday. Now, there is a suggestion already in the TORAH Even that these 2 reasons, maybe you'll come to carry it, which is a rabbinic gezerah, it's a decree, it's an advance, or it can't be on Shabbos because it has to be at the same time as the money on Friday, are 2 different sides of this debate. According to maybe the first opinion, which is it's a pure gezerah, Friday is not the real day for the Yerushalmim. It's not the real day. The real day for Purim for the Yerushalmim is Shabbos. It's the 15th because it's the 15th. And Friday is, rabbinically, we have to do it because there's a reason in case. However, according to the other opinions, no, maybe Shabbos is not the real day. Friday is the real day. And they've had to make a completely different Purim this year because you can't have Matanas Le'evyonim on Shabbos, and therefore Friday is the real day. This question as to whether, will the real Shushan Purim please stand up on this particular year, this is a magic question. I'm going to give you 5 or 6 different implications to that question. Let's flip to page 3. So one of the things that everybody knows is that some people on Purim are Yerushalmim, let's call them Yerushalmim, they read on the 15th, and some people are, let's call them Tel Avivim, okay, they read on the 14th. Of course, it's not just Tel Aviv, it's everywhere else in the entire world, but let's talk about Tel Aviv and Yerushalayim. And the determining factor to decide in every year, not just this year, whether you're a Yerushalmi or whether you're a Tel Avivi, is where do you wake up in the morning of the 14th? Okay? This year, Friday morning. If you wake up on Friday morning in Yerushalayim, and really it's not when you wake up, it's when the sun rises. If the sun rises and you're in Yerushalayim on Friday morning, you're a Yerushalmi. And your obligations are on a Yerushalayim, for those of Yerushalayim. If you wake up in Tel Aviv on Friday morning of Purim, you're a Tel Avivi, and your obligations are Tel Aviv. Now, what happens if people start running around and causing trouble? So, let's say that you get a Yerushalmi that wakes up on Friday morning and says, oh, I'm a Yerushalmi, but I'm going to go to Tel Aviv. So he gets in the car and he drives, 9 o'clock in the morning, he drives to Tel Aviv. And now, of course, in Tel Aviv, they're all reading the Megillah. But they're reading the Megillah because it's the 14th and that's their day. He's reading the Megillah, well, she's reading the Megillah today because she's been brought back to the 14th. Can the Yerushalmi read for the Tel Avivi on Friday morning? Because for the Tel Avivi, it's for sure that it's their one and only day. For the Yerushalmi, it's the day they read, but is it the real day? Is it the real thing? Can they or can they not? And by the way, many poskim rule that they cannot. The Yerushalmi may not read for the Tel Avivi because maybe the Torah read, the Megillah reading for the Yerushalmi on the Friday is not the real deal, it's the makeup, if you like, rather than the real deal. So that actually is well paskened by many poskim. It's not a problem for the Tel Avivi to read for the Yerushalmi because the Tel Avivi is on a higher level than the Yerushalmi. That's fine. But maybe the Yerushalmi should not get one of the aliyahs on to the Sefer Torah because it's not really, or is it, their Purim? That's the kind of question. Another question that arises, do you need a tzibur? Now, Megillah can be read by an individual. You do not need a minyan. Everyone agrees you don't need a minyan, pretty much, but do you need a tzibur or not? So the deal is that if you read the Megillah on the correct day, then you can read it individually, and you don't need a tzibur. But if you read it on the quotes unquote wrong day, on the day that's your special makeup day, then you need a tzibur. You can't do it on your own. So those villages that were able to read it earlier, on the 12th, on the 13th, etc., they had to do it in public. They couldn't do it individually. That's the whole point. So again, let's say you have a Yerushalmi who wakes up in Yerushalayim on Friday morning and says, you know something, I don't want to go to read the Megillah in shul. Okay, everyone agrees you should if you can, but do you have to? Does he have to? Or does she have to go to a public reading? Normally, no. This year, maybe yes. That's another one of the things that's brought up because this year, Friday is not the quotes unquote real day, although other poskim were lenient on this as well and said, if you haven't got another choice, you can read on your own on the Friday, but preferably the Yerushalmi should read with a minyan. And if they don't if they read it on their own, can they make a bracha or can they not make a bracha? That's a good question. What about a women's reading? Now, Purim needs a tzibur for Pirsumei Nisa. It doesn't need a minyan, 10 men over the age of 13. So normally speaking, a tzibur made up of men and women or just women is good enough for Pirsumei Nisa. That's a tzibur. You don't need a minyan. Again, the question this year is that, does that count this year, or is there a different day? Because it's quotes unquote not the real day. And there are those who say that even if a woman goes to a women's Megillah reading on a regular Purim, maybe this year, if they're a Yerushalmi reading on the Friday, which is quotes unquote not the real day, although it's the day they read, maybe they shouldn't go to a women's Megillah reading. Again, there are poskim that say it's fine, and there are poskim that don't like women's Megillah readings at all. And I'm not getting into that right now, but that's if you're thinking of going to a women's reading on the Friday, and you're a Yerushalmi, not a Tel Avivi, that's something that you may need to think about. Okay, next case. You're a Tel Avivi, and you wake up on Friday morning, and you do all your mitzvahs on Friday, and then you go to Yerushalayim for Shabbos. Why not? I'm going to go to Yerushalayim for Shabbos. And you wake up on Shabbos morning in Yerushalayim. Do you have to do all of the mitzvahs all over again? Or not? Or did you really do everything you needed to do? And there are poskim who are lenient. There are poskim that say you should at least do things again, maybe even on the Sunday. Maybe now I've woken up on Shabbos morning in Yerushalayim, maybe I have to do everything like a Yerushalmi, and maybe I even have to do my Purim Suda on Sunday, even if I'm back in Tel Aviv. Because I'm kind of become both. I'm like a hybrid now. I'm a Tel Avivi, and I did it all on Friday, and I'm a Yerushalmi, and I need to do it like the Yerushalmim do, and maybe I have to do it back on Sunday, even if I'm back in Tel Aviv. What about the other way around? Let's say a Yerushalmi wakes up on Friday morning, he hears the Megillah, he gives Matanas Levionim, or she does, and then he goes to Tel Aviv for Shabbos. What's he going to do on Shabbos? So maybe he's kind of lost out because he's meant to be doing things really on Shabbos, and he's in Tel Aviv on Shabbos, and they're not doing anything on Shabbos. They're not doing Purim laning on Shabbos. They're not saying Ala Nisim on Shabbos, etc., etc. So you see all of these different combinations and permutations all come up. Here's another couple of them just on page 4. There are many people that read along quietly with the Megillah. The person's reading the Megillah and they read along quietly. Normally speaking, that's fine because you can read the Megillah on your own. But if you need to be in a tzibur this year, maybe this is a year not to read along quietly if you're a Yerushalmi reading on Friday because it's quotes unquote not the real Purim, or is it? That's another question. What about a girl or a boy who reaches bar or bat mitzvah on Shabbos? Now that's interesting. So you are a kid, you're a Yerushalmi. Because if you're a Tel Avivi, then obviously Shabbos is not Purim, you've missed it, okay? But if you're a Yerushalmi and you reach your 12th birthday on the Shabbos of Shushan Purim, so do you have to read the Megillah? Well, you're not allowed to read the Megillah on Shabbos. No, that's a general rabbinic gezerah for this normal situation, but the rabbis did not make gezeras for one-off unusual situations. So maybe you actually have to read the Megillah on this Shabbos, quietly at home or whatever, because now you're bar mitzvah. The lamaisa, the poskim say that you don't have to, and there are many other situations like that. So lamaisa, what do we do? Look in the Shulchan Aruch, number 8. Yom Chamisha Asar Shechaliyos b'Shabbos. When the 15th falls on Shabbos, this is what we do. Ein Koren Megillah b'Shabbos. So everyone agrees we don't read the Megillah in public on Shabbos and or in private, except maybe in these strange cases, and even then we paskin not. Ela Magdibim Likros B'Erev Shabbos. We read the Megillah in Yerushalayim on Friday. V'Goyvim Maz Matanas Aniyim, and we collect the money for Matanas Aniyim, Matanas Levyonim on the Friday. U'Machalkim Osan, and we give it out Bo Bayom on the Friday. Ubayom Shabbos motzim shnei sfarim. On Shabbos we take out 2 Sifrei Torah. Ubasheni karev yavo amalek, and we do the reading for Purim in Yerushalayim on Shabbos. So Friday you did the Megillah and Matanas Levyonim. Shabbos you read the Purim reading and you say Al Hanisim. Okay, va'omrim Al Hanisim, and we say Al Hanisim. Ve'ein oisin sudas Purim ad Yom Echad b'Shabbos. But we only have Purim Suda on Friday. On Sunday, excuse me. See, I'm just testing. On Sunday. Okay, on Sunday. I did tell you I'm jet lagged. Okay, so we've got this 3-day Purim. Friday is Megillah Matanas Levyonim. Shabbos is Leiling in Al Hanisim. And Sunday is Sudas Purim. And with Sudas Purim also comes Mishloach Manas. Or does it? We'll see right now. So, on Shabbos. No, well, that's a question. No, you don't. So the question is, how can you do that? How do you have a Purim Suda and you don't say Al Hanisim? But it's the 16th. It's the 16th. How can you be celebrating Purim on the 16th of Adar? And we'll see in a minute, not everybody is even happy to have the Suda on the Sunday. We'll see how that works. Oh, yeah, we'll see. Why can't you have the Suda on Shabbos? We don't have a problem eating on Shabbos. We manage every other Shabbos. Okay, fine. Let's have a look now. So, the Megillah reading is easy. Everyone agrees that it should be on Friday. We talked about that just now. Or why don't you do the Megillah reading on Sunday? Because lo yavor, because we don't push things off. We bring them forward, no problem. And therefore the Yerushalmim read the Megillah on Friday. This is one of the few years when the Yerushalmim are hungry on Thursday night when they read the Megillah. Although, of course, I'm not getting into all the halachas, but if a person really is feeling weak, they can have a little snack or something before the Megillah, less than the kazayis, not mazonas, etc. But the Yerushalmim have to deal with that this year as well. Matanas Levyonim, everyone agrees, is on Friday, because you can't be handling money on Shabbos. There are some poskim, especially Chabad, that say that you should be giving Matanas Levyonim again on Sunday. And by the way, it's no bad thing to give more tzedakah. If you're a Chabadnik, then that's a good thing to do. And even if you're not a Chabadnik, you can give more tzedakah on Sunday and have in mind that this tzedakah is not just tzedakah, but it's also connected maybe with Purim as well. Fine. Al Hanisim. So the lady over here asked about Al Hanisim. So the Beis Yosef is very surprised. Have a look at the Beis Yosef. He says as follows. Number 9. Umatzati kasav sheminag Yerushalayim, because he didn't live in Yerushalayim, he lived in Sfat. He said, I've seen it written that on the minhag of Yerushalayim is the gavos mas matnos aniyim lachalkom babayom. You do the money stuff on Friday. Ve'ein omrim bo Al Hanisim, and you don't say Al Hanisim on Friday. Ve'ein motzim bo Sefer Torah, and you don't do the Sefer Torah reading on Friday. Ub'Shabbos, and on Shabbos Yom Tesvav on the 15th, shehu Yom Purim. Okay, he seems to say this for you is the real day. Omrim Al Hanisim. And you read the special lady. And I am astounded, he said. Lama la yomru ala nisim b'yom shishi sheba korim hamagila. His problem is not saying Yom ala nisim on Sunday, because Sunday's the 16th. Why would you say ala nisim on Sunday? But why aren't you going to say ala nisim on Friday? You're reading the Megillah and you're not saying ala nisim. Why would you do that? By the way, Lamaisa, if somebody says Al Nisim on Friday in Yerushalayim, they don't have to repeat the benching, and it's not considered a hefsek in the benching. I put a little note on that as well. And there are some people that say, something you can always do Al Nisim in the Harachamans. Yeah, so you can do the Harachamans, even if you don't put it in the Alakol in the beginning. So you can say Harachamanu Yatzelanu, etc., 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 and you can do it on Friday. You can do it on Sunday. You can do it anytime you like. Honestly, if you do it in the Harachamans, but Yerushalmim have to say it on Shabbos at the Shabbos Suda, and on Friday and Sunday they can fulfill this question of the Beis Yosef, and they can add it in the Harachamans. As I say, the Harachamans are all minhagim. You can say whatever you like in the Harachamans. You can do a Harachaman for Great Uncle Harry, and that's too is fine. Fine. What about working on Friday and Sunday? So working on the day of Purim is discouraged. It's not osa, but you don't want to miss the Megillah. But what about Yerushalmim on the Friday? Well, they're reading the Megillah on the Friday, but it's not a real Purim. Or is it a real promotion? They're going to work on Shabbos. Many have a minhag not to work on the Friday, even in Yerushalayim. Many people have a minhag not to work any day, quite honestly. But those who do work have a minhag not to work on the Friday. And many Yerushalmim wear special Shabbos clothes in honor of Purim, even though, quotes and quotes, the real Purim is on Shabbos. What about on Sunday? Okay, so on Sunday, all the Yerushalmim are doing is having the Suda, but some people have a minhag not to work in the afternoon where they're going to do the Suda. Fine. Shechianu, the Yerushalmim say on Friday, because they say it on the Megillah reading, and on Purim Meshulash, even though many of the mitzvahs are not happening till the next day or the day after, it doesn't matter. Shechianu is good for the whole thing. Don't forget on Pesach and on Sukkot, where we say Shechianu at the beginning, and it gets us through the whole week of Chol HaMoed, no problem. And therefore people don't have an issue with that too. Other people have a minhag, they wear new clothes on the Sunday, they wear new clothes on the Shabbos, so they can have another Shechianu and another Shechianu, etc., etc. So again, if you want to use Shabbos and Sunday as your new clothes in the day for outing day, as it were, so then you can make Shechianu on as many times as you like. But if you're doing it on Purim, you should do it only on Friday in Yerushalmim. Okay, what about the Torah reading? Have a look in the Tosfos Yontif, number 10. Kasav Rav, so he quotes the Bartanura. She'ein Korim Megillah b'Shabbos gzeru shemi yitlenu. You can't read the Megillah on Shabbos in case you carry it. Dakol chayv mikris Megillah ve'ein hakol bokim kida isa b'Gemara. We said that. V'kashili, I have a problem. In kain lama Korim b'Sefer Torah b'Shabbos. Why can we ever lane on Shabbos? Why can we lane the Purim reading on Shabbos? Kedis number Perik Basra. V'chein Perish Harav b'Samach b'Perik Pasha v'Yavo Amalek. Aval b'Kriyas Halel lo kasha. With Halel, it's not a problem. We'll talk about Halel in a minute. The Rishaim Nikros Balpeh. Halel, you can always say Balpeh. Now you're telling me, well, we don't say Halel on Purim. We'll see. Do you or don't you? We'll see. V'nichali, and I think it says the Mashikosov b'Torah. I like what it says in the Torah. The Hakari b'Parsha Sarich l'Sadeh Oisei Tefillah. When you're laning on a regular Shabbos, you have to prepare the laning. Okay? Parmim v'sholosh, twice, 3 times. Beino levein atzma, you have to come in prepared. And this is one of the main answers as to why we're allowed to do regular laning on Shabbos. Now, I mentioned before that one answer is it's because it's not an individual obligation. It's an obligation on the community, and we're not worried that the community are going to go crazy and say, what are we going to do? And they're going to be prepared. Another reason he's bringing here is because you have to be an expert to read from a Sefer Torah on Shabbos. Otherwise, everyone's going to scream and shout at you. And we're not worried about experts. Experts put preparation in, and they're not going to go crazy. Remember what we said with Megillah? Maybe someone's going to go nuts on Purim, and they don't know what to do, and they don't know how to do it. That's not going to happen with regular laning, because you don't go into Shabbos without knowing how to do it. I mean, sometimes it sounds as though that might happen in some shuls, but you're not meant to go into Shabbos without knowing how to do the laning, and therefore we're not worried about that. Okay, next. By the way, that's true of bris milah as well. Why don't we ban bris milah on Shabbos? In case somebody carries the baby, in case somebody carries the knife, etc. So again, there, a moil is always going to be an expert. What about the parents? They're not experts. I'm not getting into that. That's a whole Torah. What about the drosha? Is there a mitzvah to give a Purim drosha? The answer is yes. There is a mitzvah, number 11, v'shoyelin v'darshin by b'yom. Like every chag, there is a mitzvah to talk about the halachas of that chag on the chag. Ubehilchas Purim, Kedai sheyazkiru inyan hayom. Ukeshechal b'chol yotzim al yidei kriyas Megillah. Why don't we always have a Purim drosha on Purim? Because we read the Megillah. We read the Megillah, and that's good enough because all of the mitzvahs are in the Megillah. This year, the Yerushalmim do not read the Megillah on Shabbos, which is their Purim. And therefore, there's a special reason for the Rav to stand up and give a proper drosha about Purim. It could be a bit of Purim Torah as well, but it's a drosha about Purim as well. Now, the Suda. You asked about the Suda. Why on earth can't we have the Suda on Shabbos? So this question is the Yerushalmi, number 12. Sudas Rosh Chodesh v'Sudas Purim. Suda on Rosh Chodesh and a Suda on Purim. Ma'achrim v'loy makdimim. We push them off. We do them later. We don't bring them earlier. Rabbi Zera boy kumi the Rabbi Abav. So Rabbi Zera asked him from the Rabbi Abav v'yasas on Shabbos. So why can't we do them on Shabbos? We've fallen out of the habit of having Sudas Rosh Chodesh. It's a shame, because Rosh Chodesh is a special day for a Suda as well. Why can't we have Sudas Purim on Shabbos? Sudas Rosh Chodesh on Shabbos? Amalei, because he look at the posik he brings for Purim. La'asot otam yemei mishte v'simcha. There's a mitzvah to make Purim mishte v'simcha. Tluya bebeistin. The simcha of Purim has to be the simcha that the beistin applied by the mitzvah Purim. Yatsa, which excludes Shabbos has a special din of simcha from God, not from the Beis Din. Shabbos is the oraita. Shabbos is min Torah, and therefore you can't ein maravim simcha b'simcha. You can't have the simcha Purim Suda on Shabbos because it's a different kind of simcha. Now you're going to tell me. What are you going to tell me? Oh, what about Sheva Brachas? You're allowed, but you're not allowed to have the wedding on Shabbos, okay? We're partly because of Ein Marabim Simcha B'Simcha, or on Chol HaMoed by the same token. But we definitely do Sheva Brachas on Shabbos. And I'll ask you an even bigger question. Who said there's a din of Simcha on Shabbos? Where do we find that there's a din of, V'samachta? No, it's a din of Onig. There's a din of Onig, not a din of Simcha. Simcha is on Yonsef. And therefore, a lot of people are asking on this and disagreeing with this. How can this be? And the Ritva is very unhappy. He says, we don't paskin like this Yerushalmi. Uperishu be Yerushalmi number 13. She'im chal Purim b'Shabbos. Ma'achrin ha'Suda. If Purim falls on Shabbos, we do the Suda later. Ad acha b'Shabbos, after Shabbos. Kedei she'tei Simchas Purim nikeres. So Purim will have its own Simcha clearly, and it will not be subsumed within the Simcha of Shabbos. V'lo sisarei b'Suda Shabbos. Ve'ein ha'Yerushalmi zeh barur. I don't think this is clear at all. Too many questions. First of all, Sunday is the 16th. Where all of a sudden we're doing mitzvahs of Purim on the 16th. It says V'lo Yavor. Afilu as-simcha namihu, and that even goes in the simcha de diskaim v'nasim kasav sham, because it says that all the mitzvahs of Purim are connected with each other. Therefore, who says you can do Purim Suda on Shabbos? And therefore, there are word poskim and there are poskim who say you should do Purim Simcha on Shabbos, not on Sunday, maybe even on Friday. And the Mishnah Berurah brings views down that this Purim Suda should actually be on Shabbos. And you can eat, maybe this is even the view of the Bavli. So, Lamaisa, people, when it comes to eating, are happy to do it on all 3 days if they possibly can. So, we paskin that the Purim Suda for Yerushalmi is on Sunday, but you should definitely add something extra to the Shabbos meal in Yerushalayim, because there is good grounds to hold that the Purim Suda should be on Shabbos. And there are poskim that say that this Yerushalmi, that we don't mix simchas, is just not how we paskin, and therefore you should open an extra special bottle of wine or have something for Shabbos as well. Okay, lastly, let's just go over to the last couple of pages and we'll finish in a minute or two. Mishloach Manos, why do we give Mishloach Manos? So according to one opinion, it's because people have what to eat for the Suda. So on that basis, they have to be on Sunday, because that's when you're having the Suda. But according to the other view, we give Mishloach Manos in order to bring Achdus between the Jewish people. In which case, you can bring Achdus on Friday, you can bring Achdus on Shabbos, you can give gifts on Shabbos if it's something you can use on Shabbos. And therefore, there are many people who have ruled. I brought you the Chazon Ish. Mishloach Manos should also be on Friday for Yerushalmi, not just on Sunday. The Pri Chadash says the Mishloach Manos should be on Shabbos, because not just on Sunday, because you can give gift on Shabbos, and therefore halacha l'maisa it's Sunday. But if you want to give extra on Friday, you can give someone on Friday, you can give someone on Shabbos, and it's all part of the same mitzvah. Although halacha l'maisa it's Sunday. Is the Megillah muksa on Shabbos? Normally speaking, kisvei kodesh are not muksa, because even if they're very valuable, you can use them for learning. But what about maybe this Shabbos? Manishtana ha-Shabbos hazois mikol Shabbatot, because this Shabbos it's also to read the Megillah. So maybe it's muksa, because it's also, there's a whole discussion about this, and according to many people, it's not muksa. Yes? If they say you can give Meshulash manot on Shabbat. Yeah, sure. Then you can carry him, then you can carry Meshulash. Good, they weren't worried, because you don't have an obligation. We're not worrying the people. And also, don't forget, with the Megillah, we're worried that people are going to go crazy. I don't know how to do it. Therefore, I'm going to run on Shabbos and carrying it. Everybody knows how to carry a bottle of wine, how to give a bottle of wine. They're not... If you can carry a bottle of wine, you can carry I understand. But we're worrying about people who, without an Erev, and Megillah, they'll lose their mind over it, because they're verkocht that they don't know how to read the Megillah. The wine, they're not so bothered about the wine. Okay, I can't give it today. I'll give it tomorrow. It'll be fine. Yes, sir.
That has unity of the Klal Yisrael as its
Yes.
message.
Yes.
How isn't that defeated by having everybody have different days?
Well, I don't know, because actually unity doesn't mean uniformity, and the idea of unity is that we can all do things different ways and all nevertheless respect each other, and while those all be the same. Judaism is meant to have 12 tribes, it's not meant to be the same. Let's just finish off very quickly. Hallel on Shabbos. Well, we don't say Hallel because we read the Megillah. The Megillah is in place of Hallel. Yeah, the Gemara says the reason we don't say Hallel is because we read the Megillah instead. But Yerushalmim on Shabbos, which is their real Purim, are not reading the Megillah. So maybe they should say Hallel. That's an interesting question which is debated, because this is not the practice. Although there are those who say that a bar mitzvah boy who becomes bar mitzvah or bas mitzvah girl should say Hallel on that Shabbos because they're not reading the Megillah. I've already a little bit on Aveilus. What about dressing up for Purim? So you'll say, well, who cares? I can dress up any day I like. The answer is no. There are special heterim on Purim. Are men allowed to dress as women, or are women allowed to dress as men? Now, I'm not getting into this. Most poskim are not happy about this. But if you want to rely on a special Purim heter, which is the day that you get your heter, you can think about that. And then finally, let's just talk about two final things and we'll finish off. On page 8, for those who are not fortunate enough to be Yerushalmim, we have our Purim Suda on Friday. So I'll be in Alon Shvut on Friday, Be'ezrat Hashem. So when do you do your Purim Suda? Mishnah Berurah, most of the Meforshim bring down the Ramah, which says you should do it in the morning. Do a brunch. Okay, it might be a little bit less boozy than a regular Purim Suda, because Shabbos is coming and people have to cook for Shabbos. But there are those individuals that like to do what's called Pores Mappa. Pores Mappa is you have your Purim Suda on Friday afternoon, and then as you glide effortlessly into Shabbos, you just put a cloth over the bread, you make Kiddush. You don't have to say another Brei Pri Hagafen because you're already in the middle of the Suda. You lift up a kais, you make Brei Pri, you drink the wine, you say Kiddush, and then you hope that everybody has enough seichel to still do all the mitzvahs of Ma'ariv on Shabbos and etc. etc. So there are people who are very excited about this. It feels like a lot of fun. There are other people who think, well, you're more likely to actually not do all the things you're meant to do on Friday night. Friday night davening is going to go out of the window. Other people are very unhappy about Pores Mappa. Okay, you pay some money, you take your choice, you decide what you're going to do on that. Most people do the brunch. What about Tachanan on Sunday for the non-Yerushalmim? Because Sunday is garnished for the non-Yerushalmim. What's Sunday? Yeah. So, you don't need much of an excuse not to say Tachanun. And there are those who write that Sunday is also a kind of day of Simcha, even if it's not outside Purim, outside Yerushalayim. At the end of the day, I brought you the final source, which is a Mishnah in Menachos, which is brought down by the Ramah about drinking and acting on Purim. It says, Echat HaMarbe, Ve'echat HaMamid, whether you want to do extra, whether you want to do just what you have to do. Bilvad she'yechaven adam es dasa l'shamayim. As long as you're doing it l'shem shamayim, then Be'ezras Hashem, you will be Mekayim, all the mitzvahs of Purim, and you can keep all the chumras that you want. That's also great, as long as everyone's doing it l'shem shamayim. I certainly hope that everyone works out how to have a great Purim. We will have a shir next week on Wednesday, so I'm not going to wish you a Purim Sameach because I can do that next Wednesday. Next Wednesday we'll move on to other things, but for today, for this Yom Yun, hopefully this has given you what you need. All the best.